Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me begin with a question that will make you uncomfortable, and I want you to sit with that discomfort, because discomfort is precisely where transformation begins its quiet work. What if the greatest obstacle on your spiritual path is you thinking there is a you on a spiritual path? What if the very seeker is the veil? What if the one doing the searching is what needs to be examined first? You wake up and you pray. You fast through the long hours. You study the books of Tazkiyah and Tasawwuf. You attend lectures. You make tawbah again and again. And yet something remains hollow inside you. Something remains unsatisfied and restless. A quiet voice inside you whispers that there must be more than this, that the forms are all correct but the fire is somewhere missing, that you are doing everything right and yet the door has not opened. That voice is not weakness. That voice is Ibn Arabi speaking to you across 8 centuries. Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi was born in Marcia, Andalusia, in the year 1165 of the Common Era, in a land where Islam and Christianity and Judaism had breathed the same air and walked the same streets for generations. He died in Damascus in 1240, leaving behind a body of work so vast and so systematically radical that scholars still argue about what he actually meant. He called himself Shaykh al-Akbar, the greatest master. His critics called him a heretic. His followers called him the seal of Mohammedan sainthood. His magnum opus, the Fusus al-Hikam, the bezels of wisdom, he claimed was placed directly into his hand by the Prophet, peace be upon him, in a vision. His other masterwork, the Futuhat al-Makkiyah, the Meccan openings, runs to 37 volumes of continuous spiritual revelation. This is not a man who thought small. This is not a man who was content with the surface of anything, including the surface of his own soul. But we are not here for his biography. We are here because Ibn Arabi diagnosed a spiritual disease, a disease as prevalent today in our age of spiritual content and wellness podcasts as it was in 13th century Andalusia. If we do not understand his diagnosis, we will keep treating the symptom while the root grows deeper and more invisible. Ibn Arabi's most disturbing insight is this: most people are not in a relationship with Allah. They are in a relationship with their idea of Allah. They have constructed, from their theology and their culture and their conditioning and their ego, an image of the divine, and they worship that image faithfully and sincerely their entire lives. He distinguishes in his philosophy between al-Haq, the absolute reality, the real as it is in itself, and the God of belief, the mental image of the divine that a person builds and then mistakes for the thing itself. And he makes a claim that shook the medieval Islamic world to its foundations. Every person worships a different God. The theologian worships the God of logical proofs. The jurisprudent worships the God of rulings and boundaries. The Sufi of one school worships the God of annihilation. The merchant worships the God of barakah and provision. Not one of them is worshipping the absolute as the absolute, because the absolute by definition cannot be contained in any concept or any system or any mental image whatsoever. This is not atheism. This is not relativism. This is the most radical form of tawheed that Islamic thought has ever produced, because real tawheed means every mental idol must be shattered, including your most cherished theological one, including the God you have spent decades carefully constructing and are most proud of understanding. Now we arrive at the concept that has made Ibn Arabi simultaneously famous and infamous, celebrated and condemned, across 8 centuries of Islamic intellectual history. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being. Let me tell you what it does not mean first, because the misunderstanding is almost universal and has caused enormous damage. It does not mean that everything is God. It does not mean the rock on the road is God or the tree is God or your ego is God. That is pantheism. And Ibn Arabi was not a pantheist. What Wahdat al-Wujud actually means is something far more precise and far more illuminating than that crude reduction. There is only one wujud, one existence, one being, one reality that actually is, and that is Allah. Everything else, the universe, the human being, the angels, all of manifest creation, exists not with its own independent existence, but as a tajalli, a self-disclosure, a manifestation of that one real being into the theater of multiplicity. He uses the analogy of a mirror. Allah is the light. Creation is the mirror. The mirror does not generate the light. It receives it and reflects it. And depending on the quality of the mirror, the angle, the clarity, the presence of rust and tarnish, the reflection differs. You are a mirror, and your spiritual journey is the polishing of that mirror, so it can reflect more truthfully. The tragedy is that most of us have spent our entire lives arguing about what the light looks like, debating the theology of light, writing footnotes about light, forming schools and sects about the proper understanding of light, instead of simply polishing the surface that is meant to receive it. We have made the map into the destination, and forgotten that the journey was always about the territory. Ibn Arabi teaches that there are layers of veils between the human being and the real. But unlike what most spiritual systems tell you, that the veils are your sins, your laziness, your insufficient worship, your lack of discipline, Ibn Arabi goes to a depth that most teachers are afraid to go to. The deepest veil is not sin. The deepest veil is the self that thinks it is journeying. He calls this the nafs, but not in the simple moralistic sense of the lower self that wants forbidden things. The nafs for Ibn Arabi is the illusion of a separate and independent self that believes it exists apart from and in relation to the divine reality as a genuine other. It is the voice that says, I am doing this, I am progressing, I have reached this station, I am a sincere seeker of God. And here is the cruel paradox that Ibn Arabi illuminates with devastating precision. The more sophisticated your spiritual ego becomes, the thicker the veil. The beginner's ego says, I want money and comfort. That is a thin and obvious veil, but the advanced seeker's ego says, I want annihilation in Allah, I want fana, I want the highest stations. That is a much thicker veil, because it has made the spiritual journey itself into an object of desire, and it has smuggled the ego in through the back door of the mosque, wearing a thob and a turban and carrying a rosary, looking for all the world like the most devoted person in the room. The ego is endlessly creative in its capacity for self-preservation. Now here is where Ibn Arabi becomes truly extraordinary and genuinely difficult, the doctrine of al-ayan al-thabita, the fixed essences. This is one of the most philosophically sophisticated ideas in the entire history of Islamic thought, and it changes everything about how you understand your own existence. Before anything was created, before the universe existed, before there was light or darkness or time, the Absolute knew itself. And in knowing itself infinitely and completely, it knew all possible modes of its own self-disclosure. Each of those possible modes is a fixed essence, an ayan thabita, and one of those essences is yours, one of them is mine. Our souls existed in the divine knowledge before creation, as pure possibilities. Your soul did not come into existence when you were born. Your unique way of reflecting the divine, your specific mode of knowing and loving and experiencing the real, existed in the divine knowledge as a fixed essence before the universe had a beginning. You were known before you were made. You were loved before you had a name. And your entire life, your spiritual journey, your suffering, your longing, your love, your failures, your moments of grace, is the unfolding of that fixed essence from pure possibility into actual existence. What progresses on the spiritual path is not your soul. What progresses is your awareness of what you already are. You are not becoming something. You are remembering something. If everything is a self-disclosure of the real, then nothing in existence is accidental. Nothing is meaningless. Not your pain, not your confusion, not your doubt, not even your sins, because all of these are modes through which the real is knowing itself through you, in your particular and irreplaceable form. The universe needed your specific mirror in order to see a specific face of itself. Ibn Arabi returns again and again to a hadith Qudsi that he regards as the key to understanding why anything exists at all. The divine said, I was a hidden treasure. I love to be known. So I created creation, that I might be known. This is not metaphor for Ibn Arabi. This is the literal metaphysical structure of reality. Creation exists because the Absolute desired self-knowledge through multiplicity. You are not an accident. You are not a test subject in a cosmic examination. You are how Allah is knowing Himself in your particular form, through your particular life, with your particular struggles and gifts and darkness and light. You are the site of a divine self-discovery. And once you truly understand this, once it moves from intellectual knowledge into dhawq, into tasting, everything changes. The way you pray changes when you know that the prayer is not you reaching upward towards something remote and difficult to please. The prayer is the divine reaching toward itself through you, using your hands and your tongue and your longing as the instrument of its own self-disclosure. You are the medium. The message is already complete. Let me now name concretely the patterns that Ibn Arabi's philosophy identifies as the primary failure modes of the spiritual path, not to shame anyone but to illuminate what is actually happening beneath the surface of our sincere and dedicated practice. The first failure mode is the idolatry of theology. You have replaced the living encounter with God with a system of correct beliefs about God. Your certainty has become your cage. The precision of your doctrinal positions has become the thing you protect most fiercely. And Ibn Arabi says, every limitation you place on the absolute is a subtle form of association, because you have equated your mental construction with the unconstrained real. The second failure mode is spiritual ambition. You want to achieve spiritual states. You track your progress in maqamat. You compare your station to others subtly and sometimes not so subtly. You are running what is essentially a spiritual career, complete with milestones and recognition, and a sense of having arrived somewhere that others have not yet reached. The ego has colonized the deen while wearing its finest clothes. The third failure mode is sectarianism of the heart. You have decided that your school, your Shaykh, your method, your madhab is the correct one, and all others are deficient or deviated. Ibn Arabi, who was simultaneously a master of fiqh and tasawwuf, who quoted the Quran and Aristotle and Neoplatonic philosophers, said the heart that has truly seen cannot be owned by any single religion's image of the real. He wrote that his heart had become capable of every form, a pasture for gazelles and a monastery for Christian monks, a temple for idols and a Kaaba for the pilgrim, the tablets of the Torah and the pages of the Quran. This is not syncretism, and it is not the erasure of distinctions. This is the heart that has been polished so completely that it can reflect every tajalli of the divine without flinching or contracting. The fourth failure mode is seeking fana as a form of escape. Some seekers pursue spiritual annihilation not from love of the real but from exhaustion with the burden of selfhood, from a desire to stop being responsible for the weight of being a person. Ibn Arabi is very precise about this. True fana is followed necessarily by baqa, subsistence. You do not disappear, you return to the world, but you return knowing that the actor is not the autonomous separate self you once imagined yourself to be. This is the station of the prophets and the great awliya, not escape from the world into a private spiritual ecstasy, but full engaged clear-eyed presence in the world, acting without the weight of the illusion of authorship. They act perfectly because there is no self-consciousness interrupting the action. The mirror reflects without distortion, because there is no hand smudging it from behind. So what does Ibn Arabi offer as the way forward? Not a 5-step program, not a new curriculum or a new set of techniques, but 3 fundamental orientations that reframe everything else you are already doing and give it the depth it needs to crack something open, rather than merely reinforce what is already there. The first orientation is kashf over khabar, direct unveiling over transmitted report. Ibn Arabi honors the transmitted tradition with full scholarly rigor, but he insists that the tradition points toward an experience, not away from it. The Quran is not a legal manual that replaces encounter. It is an invitation, and until your relationship with it produces kashf, direct knowing, a genuine tearing of the veil, you are reading a letter about a beloved without ever having met them in person. The second orientation is the polishing of the mirror. This is where practice enters, not as performance for God, not as spiritual resume building, but as the patient and humble removal of rust. Every salah, every dhikr, every act of ihsan done from the awareness that you are thinning a veil rather than accumulating merit, becomes a fundamentally different act than the same action done for reward or recognition, even divine recognition. The third orientation is absolute adab before the mystery. For Ibn Arabi, the deepest station is not ecstasy or visions or miraculous perception or spiritual power. It is adab, courteous and humble presence before a reality that will always exceed your comprehension. To say, I do not fully know, and in not fully knowing, to remain open, remain receptive, remain in the posture of a student before something inexhaustibly greater than any system you could build to contain it. There is a moment in Ibn Arabi's autobiography where he describes meeting a woman named Fatima bint Ibn al-Muthanna in Seville. She was in her 90s, she was illiterate, and she was, he said, one of the greatest spiritual masters he had ever encountered in his life. He sat at her feet. He learned from her. This is the man who had memorized the Quran and the Hadith and the philosophy of the Greeks. Adab before the real is not performance. It is the recognition that the real arrives in forms that will constantly surprise and humble you. Let me speak directly now about what this means for you sitting here tonight, carrying whatever load you came in with, whatever question or frustration or longing brought you to this room. Your spiritual journey has not failed because you are lazy or insincere or insufficient. Those are not the real problems. The real problem may be more interesting than that. The real problem may be that you have made yourself the center of a story about your own spiritual development, and that story, however noble, however sincere, however beautifully constructed, is still fundamentally a story about you. And the moment the story is about you, you have already missed the point that Ibn Arabi spent 800 pages of the Futuhat trying to communicate. The point is this: there is no spiritual journey from here to there. There is only the progressive dissolution of the illusion that you were ever separate from the destination. The mirror was always capable of reflecting the light. The light was never absent. What was absent was the clarity, the polish, the willingness to stop defending the smudges and the rust, as if they were part of your identity. You came into existence because the divine loved to be known. Your longing for God, that ache that refuses to be satisfied by anything the world offers, that restlessness that brought you to this room tonight, is not ultimately your longing. It is the divine's longing for itself, running through you as the channel, using your specific and irreplaceable mirror to know one face of itself, that no other mirror in all of creation can show. This is why no one else's spiritual path will work for you. This is why copying someone else's practice, or someone else's states will always feel hollow. Your fixed essence, your ayn thabita, has its own mode of knowing the real, its own specific face that the real wants to see through you. Your job is not to become someone else's mirror. Your job is to become fully, honestly, humbly your own. Ibn Arabi does not ask you to destroy yourself. He asks you to ask one question with full seriousness, with the full weight of your being, without rushing to answer it. Who is the one who is seeking? Not what do I believe about seeking, not what does my Shaykh say about seeking, but who actually right now is the one doing this? Sit with that question, let it go all the way down. Because the moment that question is truly asked, not intellectually, not as a philosophical exercise, but as a genuine and urgent inquiry into the nature of your own existence, something begins to shift. The questioner begins to look at itself. And when the questioner looks at itself with sufficient honesty and depth, it begins to see something it was not expecting to find. Or rather, it begins to not find something it was always expecting was there. And in that not finding, in that moment of genuine bewilderment, in that hayra that Ibn Arabi says is the closest the human being can come to the station of prophets, in that bewilderment, something opens, not because you did it correctly, not because you finally achieved the right state, but because the light was always there, and the mirror has become just slightly, a little more clear. Wallahu alam, and Allah knows best. May Allah polish our mirrors, and forgive us for the idols we have made of our understanding. May He show us Himself, not merely our reflections of our ideas about Him, and may He use each of us, in our specific fixed, irreplaceable essence, as a site of His own loving self-disclosure in this world. Ameen.